meeting to order for March 21st, 2023, and we're at 6:02. And if you'll join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm glad you went in there.
When is this?
All right, if we can get an adoption of the agenda.
Yes, Joe. I will make a motion to adopt the agenda for March 21st, 2023 as submitted.
Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. All right, item 3, recognitions, proclamations. Anybody on the board have anything they wanted to brag about today? Dr. Ramandini, do you have anything?
Well, I just have a few things. I first want to welcome everybody back from spring break and hope we have a wonderful fourth quarter. It's full speed ahead. What did you say, Erin? It was a sprint.
A run, and I said, no, it's a sprint.
It's a sprint. And we are full speed ahead planning and preparing to end the year strong and to start next year. And I do want to wish Corby well. Corby is keynoting the address at the ASA Women in Leadership Conference tomorrow. So I know you'll represent yourself and us well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Just that Clements, I know, not him on the agenda, but 38 years teaching is a long time.
Especially at the same place.
Yeah.
And he's still sane.
Yeah, well, yeah, he is, pretty much.
Wow.
All right, item 2B, a presentation. We have the Wickenburg Unified School District Threat Assessment Process presented by Debbie Hodgkiss. And she has a helper tonight that she'll introduce.
Do we?
Good evening, President Malio, members of the board, and Dr. Remendini. Tonight, Officer Joe Leahy, our high school resource officer, will also be here to help me present on the school threat assessment team. And he will also answer all of the hard questions, okay? That's why he's here. So if you remember back in, before the pandemic, back in 2020, we applied for a school safety grant, and it was called the STOP grant, and it was directly from the federal government, and we were awarded that grant, and it was a training grant for our staff. And one of the trainings that we have had an opportunity to attend is threat management team training, and we had all of our counselors, all of our principals, our school psychologist, our Director of Exceptional Student Services, Dr. Remendini, myself, and Officer Leahy at that training. And what we're doing is we're working on a new threat management team protocol, and it has several phases. I'm going to give you a high-level overview tonight, and Joe will answer any of your questions. So I've got too many things going. Okay, so the purpose of the threat management system is to support our district in managing any kind of internal disruptions to our safe working and learning environment. It's going to identify our roles, the functions of those roles, and it will also help us meet Arizona state statutes that determine that we can't disrupt the learning environment. We want to determine if a staff or a student is on the path to violence, and then we want to create a plan for a student who is troubled or showing any kind of behavior that would motivate a problem to safety. So the goal of a threat assessment is to prevent violence. It's to address problems such as bullying that could escalate. It's to reduce any kind of school suspensions, and it's also to improve the relationships between students and staff. Protective factors, one of the key protective factors our students have is a positive relationship with an adult. And so this process is to help us accomplish those goals. So as defined by the U.S. Secret Service, what is a threat? A threat occurs when a person indicates by word or conduct the intent to cause physical injury or serious damage to person or their property. So if that were to occur, or we thought it may occur on one of our campuses, we would convene our TMT team. It's our threat management team. And the first person that would initiate this is the principal of the site. And then that principal would call together other members of the team to help them evaluate whether or not the threat was substantive or transient. We'll talk about that in a second. So our school psychologists, and we are blessed to have two very experienced school psychologists at our school now. We would have the school counselor. We may call in another school counselor to assist us if we need to, and then our school resource officer. And then depending on the student, we may call in a school nurse or the exceptional student services director, or a social worker if we have the position, if we have it filled. So the team has several functions. This is just a glance at the functions, but basically they're going to gather data. They're going to review the information. They have a multidisciplinary perspective to evaluate that information, and then they're going to recommend options for the safety of the school, the students, as well as that individual's rights. They're going to confirm with the parents and inform them of the process and what's going on. They may interview the parents. They will assign staff to assist with follow-up supervision and a safety plan. They're going to document this whole process. We have several different phases that they could possibly go to. And then they're going to maintain the confidentiality of the student's case and provide staff with procedures to follow up any type of event. To initiate, the first thing the team will do, or the administrator will do, is they're going to address the safety issue. Number one, if there's an issue, they're going to address that first. Then they will contact campus security, law enforcement, whoever they need to do, a crisis team to address that security issue, and they'll notify the parent and guardian. District leadership will be involved and notified. That would be Dr. Remendini. After they ensure that we're secure, then they will get the threat management team together, and they will follow the different procedures. Now, there's several phases to the threat management team, but this process could stop at any phase. Okay, they could go through phase one and determine that it's not a substantive threat, and they could end the investigation. Okay, so we have two types of threats. We have a transient threat. That means there's no intent to harm. Then there's a substantive threat, and that is an intent. There is an intent present, or we just don't have enough information, and we have to continue the phases. It's a protective action. We're going to try to protect the school, the students, the property, anything that we need to do in a substantive threat. So we're going to follow the phases that we need to go through. The first phase is to evaluate the threat. That's the administrator, the site administrator, and they're going to evaluate it. After that first phase, they may determine it's it's transient, and that's it. They'll end it. They could go through the initial incident interview. They could ask for more data to be collected on the student and the situation. The team is going to identify what risk factors and protective factors the student may have. Then they will classify the threat. They're going to gather all this information. They're going to do a threat classification, a threat response and disposition summary, And then a plan will come out of a substantive threat. Okay, so all of these phases may happen, or maybe one, or maybe three. Whenever they get to a point where they determine this is not substantive, then they'll stop the process. But the whole thing will be documented. So we have 5 different levels of potential risk. The highest level is level 5, and that's an imminent risk for harm. And it's an individual that is or is very close to behaving in a way that is dangerous to self or others. And it may require immediate medical referral or an arrest. Level 4 is high risk of harm. There's display of significant early warning signs. This may require a referral to other services, and it will be actively managed, that case. A level 3 is moderate risk. Displays some early warning signs, and there may be evidence of some internal emotional distress. There could be depression, withdrawal, whatever the team has identified, but it's just at the early stages. And we will intervene, and that one will have a plan. Level 2 is low risk. It displays minor early warning signs, but the assessment reveals there's little history of serious risk factors or dangerous behaviors, and they have a lot of stabilizing factors or protective factors within their within their reach. So there may be evidence of unintentional infliction of distress on others, like maybe they were teasing or they just pushed a situation a little bit too far, but it's at low risk for harm. So our students and staff would be at very low risk. And then there's a level 1, and this is your transient. There's no risk for harm. It's upon assessment, it appears that there is a significant insufficient evidence of any risk. Situations under this category, they could include a misunderstanding, poor decision making, false accusations from peers, or maybe somebody else is trying to get someone in trouble. So I asked Officer Joe if he could give you a couple of hypothetical examples of some of these stages or risk factors, risk levels. We have stages, phases, and levels. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Joe.
Thank you. Thanks, Deb. Yeah, we've had experience now in dealing with several levels. We haven't really had what we would call an imminent, substantive threat that was fully capable of happening. Okay, but we do get all kinds of indications on a infrequent basis, but we look at each one and treat it like it could be real. There's been somewhere some students were playing some music that had a song in it. It was a really catchy tune. A lot of us got to like it after we heard it. It would be going around in our head for a while there too. But the language or the wording, the narrative in there could be considered disturbing. So, and in some cases that gets taken out of context, and that's where we would then have to determine what was the intent, why were they listening to that, those kind of things. So that could be a 2 or a 3, for instance, before we found out, no, it's kids doing what kids do. So we would then reduce it back. But we'd have to have the whole team involved once we got beyond the decision where, yeah, we better look further and better involve all of our resources.
Joe,
we've had some where
Officer, we're streaming, so we don't need the microphone, but the streaming needs the microphone. Does that make sense?
Right here. Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
So anyway, we've had others where there was enough detail, enough pre-thought that went into what we were seeing. Social media was supporting what was going on, those kind of things. So we had not only the threat, but we had then the threat spreading to families and parents and things like that. So that would immediately take it to a higher level. I'm trying to think here. We had some thoughts. We've heard of some things that involved weapons. When we finally found out what kind of weapons they were talking about, they were not basically harmful enough to be considered a high-level threat. In that case, though, the threat, in our estimation, was whoever possessed that weapon, because it was realistic looking, the threat could be they could be hurt or injured because of someone responding to that presentation of that kind of a weapon. So you can get the different levels from different avenues, I guess I would say, that will influence you along the way. The other thing is the threat management team, because of the other disciplines that we bring into it, can help us understand whether this is an indicator or something that really could be considered serious if it's not in our own realm of expertise. So we rely on that. We rely a lot on doing home visits to see what the situation is at home and the interaction is between parents and students, those kind of things, to be able to evaluate where we are. Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
Debbie, I'm going to interrupt you one more time.
Yes.
You'll look back, one member of your team is here as well. So.
Wonderful. We also, if you have not met Karen Motes, she is our new counselor at Festival Foothills. She was also part of our threat management team training. So thank you for being here. I told Joe if they throw a hard question out, I might point at others. So anyway, we have a response level also to these risks. So for example, if we do have a high level risk, it's immediate action to secure the individual, security response, parent notification, background, record check, and we would probably, the student would be removed from the school campus. So we would have to have a return to school plan, possibly, and then ongoing case management. If it were a high level, level 4, immediate action, again, to secure the individual, security response, but the student may be suspended. The student may be placed in an alternative setting. And it just depends on whatever the team decides. And then 3 is a moderate. There's a security response, parent notification, all of that, and then ongoing case management. Low levels, there would be a review of records, parent notification, and a security response. There may or may not be suspensions on the lower levels. The goal is to keep students in school. And then no risk from harm is investigating the situation. The parent will be notified and others will be involved, but if there's no risk and we find it's a transient risk, then there wouldn't be any discipline action. And, maybe some counseling on that's not the best words that you should be using in that situation, but we just want to provide the appropriate response with the appropriate level of risk. So our goal is threat prevention. That's always our goal, but threat management is definitely our reality. Yes, Sandy.
2 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
We talk about social media and everything. So how do we find out what's being broadcast out there on social media? I mean, there's all kinds of forums. I mean, does somebody let you know it's out there? How do we know what's out there?
It's typically reported. It's reported by another student if it's one of those social platforms that adults of our age are not on. But students report. If a parent sees it, it's report. If one of our staff, of course. But it's typically reported by somebody who has seen the activity.
Okay, so basically we have to hope if somebody sees it, they let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was my first question. My second question is, we talked about, them having, different feelings and things like that where counseling might benefit them. I remember quite a few months ago, there was a student that was suspended and whatever, and the parent absolutely forbid the kid to go to counseling and help him. And so can we make these kids do the counseling and things, or are we kind of at the parents' mercy of them letting us?
Well, again, it's all about that team, and what that team determines is the appropriate level of response. So it just depends.
Right, but if the counseling is part of the response, if the team gets together and says, they need counseling, they really have a lot of inner feelings and things that we need to talk about, do they have to go?
So I'll jump in if that's okay. So our counselors at our schools have a lot of training in different types of counseling. They're not all therapists.
Mhm.
So if the threat management team identified counseling, it may be something that our wonderful school counselors can handle on a regular basis in-house. If we were trying to, and I think I know the case you're talking about, is to get some outside therapy. We can't force somebody to do anything outside. There are some ways that schools can provide that, but the parents do have to approve that. We do, just for example, we do have some licensed therapists that we contract with when students have therapy as part of their IEP.
Mhm.
But if a student doesn't have that as part of that IEP, and of course, the parent has to approve the IEP. So no, we can't do that. So that's when we would respond at a higher level to keep everybody safe, including the student
Yes.
who needs the therapy.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Ron.
In the responses here in level 4, it's suspended or placed in an alternative setting. What's an alternative setting?
Again, depending on the student, there could be a detention center, possibly. There could be a in-residence schooling option. It depends if the student has an individualized educational plan, and there are alternative schools that we contract with, and we would place a student at someplace else. We've also had students move to an online setting versus an on-site setting, if their behavior is difficult.
But they're not suspended.
It depends. Again,
No, but I'm saying,
this is an alternative to suspension.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a way to keep their learning going, and keep them in an educational environment versus suspension or expulsion.
like suspension, they can do the online school, right?
After the suspension is over.
So typically what happens, the initial response would be the discipline. We would suspend a child or remove them from the situation, suspend them while this is going on. Then the determination would be made, has the suspension been, does the kid come back to the school, or is there a long-term suspension out, and then we are responsible for their education even if we long-term suspend them, or is there another setting that's appropriate for them?
So that in your explanation of the alternative setting, it was online school. But if they're long-term suspended, they get to go to online school.
That is an option. That could be an option.
Which I don't know that they necessarily do. Okay. I had another question. Do you have these, situation come up, whatever, that it's like a checklist that, you go to, that you go, okay, that, ding, 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 ding.
Like, help me out with checklist.
Well, in other words, you have all your, in whatever the threat is, there this different, you go through these different steps
Right.
in the response.
So
is this stuff written down, or online, whatever, so that you go to it and you go through that, so in the heat of the moment you don't miss something?
yes. So this threat management team process is a document. It's a large document. Okay. And right now we are going through. We have our psychologists, our counselors, and even our principals are involved in honing it down to more specific questions. Some of the phases have 100 questions. Some of them have 3 questions, but we're making sure that it all makes sense to our team, because those phases, I gave you the title of the phases, but each phase has at least one sheet, if not more sheets of, like you said, a checklist. Yeah. These are the things you're going to look for. The most important thing is we're gathering data. So we're gathering data, we're conducting interviews, looking into records, we're gathering all types of data to really take a good look at this situation without jumping to conclusions too quickly or without missing information that we should be looking at.
Is there ongoing training? That goes
Say that one more time.
ongoing training?
Yes. So right now we've gone through our initial training, and then now we're working on the documents. We also have an opportunity to be coached. So when we get into a situation, the vendor that has trained us will provide us coaching hours to work through the document, and then we can do more training each year in order to stay up on the process.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Okay, great, I love this, I guess I heard from you, the purpose is threat prevention, correct?
Threat management for sure. Yes.
I was a little confused because of the initiating of the threat management team. Number 2, it listed administrative contacts, campus security, and police, but then it says mobile crisis team. What is a mobile crisis team, or what would a mobile crisis team be used for?
So a mobile crisis team is through Maricopa County. It's not something that we necessarily have. We do have, our counselors that would initiate it. But if we have a situation where we need to bring in the Maricopa crisis team, then we would mobilize them into a situation. For example, if we had a suicide or a potential suicide, something like that, we would immediately bring in additional support from Maricopa County. Did I answer that right, or am I?
Just trying
No.
to, when I think of a mobile crisis team, I almost think of like a SWAT team.
Joe, I'm going to pass it.
I don't know,
A psychological SWAT team, not an armed SWAT team. No.
Okay,
Those are typically called, in my, too many years of experience, when suicide is seeming imminent with a plan. So there is a possibility of additional resource officers and police presence that would come in. But Karen's jumping up, so she may.
Okay.
Karen can help. I was just going to go with the mobile crisis.
Okay.
So a mobile crisis team is 2 mental health professionals. One can be licensed, one usually is not. And they do exactly that. They are mobile. They go to you or wherever the student is to assess further to see, do they need to go inpatient to a hospital or the alternative setting kind of thing, or can they resolve it right there? So that's what a mobile crisis team is.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
That was a lot.
All right. Because this is all preparation and pre-occurrence, pre-incident, anything like that. I just some of the things that have gone on in today's society, I almost daily we're seeing school shootings, and not necessarily a student that's there, or somebody from off campus, or a student that's been withdrawn from the campus and has come back to go through their threat. And I know some of the times I've heard that the law enforcement teams have been contacted, they've been notified, things like that, and nothing has been done until it's too late. I like this, anything we can get out there that's going to help us prevent something from occurring, but it just seems like it's almost impossible in today's society.
What I love about this is it's a team approach, and we're all on the same page. So we've had new counselors this year and new principals this year, and this provides us an opportunity. We all went through the training together. We are now on the same page, and we know what to do. We are still learning, and we are still looking at the details of it, so it works in an efficient way for us. But that's what I love about this training is everybody knows exactly what is phase 1. Let's do phase 1. And let's see where we're at after phase 1. We had a principal who initiated a phase 1. When they were finished with it, they knew it was a transient, and they're like, I've done it, right? I did my due diligence. I've been trained. I've done my due diligence. That principal slept better that night because they were able to take care of it to the way they were trained. So.
And one other thing, last, I think here, is it mentioned also of the TMT to convene and all procedures followed. The procedures, what are the procedures?
They're in our handbook. So again, it's the phases. So each phase has somewhat of I'm going to say an instruction to it on what you do in this phase, and then it has the questions that you go through and what you're trying to look for. There's a goal for each phase.
That Ron was making.
It's somewhat like a checklist, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Joe.
Yes, sir.
On that, so they talk about the checklist. Where is it located? In other words, if
We have it in a share drive,
okay,
and all of our team has access to it.
okay.
Susan, you good? The only thing I want to do is I just want to compliment it. I think this is the best thing. Keep our kids in the educational setting is the best thing, you know, somehow. And I think this is going to hopefully keep us there.
Yep. Well, I appreciate Wickenburg PD for helping us and partnering with us for a school resource officer. I appreciate Dr. Remendini and her commitment to ensure that we have full-time counselors on our campuses. And, you know, Arizona Department of Education for offering an extensive school safety grant that we get to apply for again this year. So, you know, it's a collective effort.
Yeah, it is.
So thank you.
Good,
Takes
thank
a
you.
village.
Great presentation.
Yeah.
Thanks, Officer Joe.
I just wanted to ask Officer Joe what he thought about his caricature that was in the presentation there.
Yeah, I drew that myself. We were all allowed to draw our own image of what we think. Mine got doctored a little bit afterwards. No.
I just kidding. You know, just
Thank you both.
thank
Anyway,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
All right, item 2C is our first principal report. We have Festival Foothills Elementary, and Mrs. Corby Naylor is here to answer any questions you all may have. And Randy, you want to start?
Oh, sure. A good report, Corby. Like that. One of the items I had here was, let me see. Oh, yeah. The discipline evaluations. I just questioned that, you know, you have it K through 6 and then 7 and 8. Are they evaluated differently
No,
for space on the page?
correct. Synergy will only let me do 6 at a time. So you just have to put 7 and 8.
Okay, but
Print
totals
a
different.
separate report.
Too.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Let me look at what you're seeing. All right, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Were they evaluated differently because, you know, they're counted differently, the 7th and 8th on theirs than the total of the whole school.
So there's a total in each column. The total on top is the total for kinder, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. That's 64 is the total for all those grades. And then the 29 is the total for 7th and 8th grade.
So
Excuse me one second. Hey, Jeremy Corliss, could I see you for 1 second? I'm having a little technical difficulty.
Okay, so
So the total for the
Again, it's the
school
total.
would be 93. Yes, the total for the school then would be 93, math and public, so give me a second. Just making sure I'm right.
okay. I didn't know if.
Yes, I'm sorry, I should put the total separately somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, is that okay?
Let's see.
Because I had that whole presentation.
All right, the benchmark evaluations.
Yes.
The academic growth for math.
Yes.
That was the one I was
Okay.
looking Wow, it's way down here.
Mm-hmm.
When I was looking at the ones for, again, 7th and 8th grade, just, they just
I
blew me
know.
away. It's just like, wow, they're,
They are much lower than we would prefer to see them. So the analysis of the data, the good news is that digging through the data, we're having conversations in PLCs weekly about where we go next. And, our 7th and 8th grade math were low. They're still below the state proficiency. If we look at the benchmark, obviously we don't know what the state benchmarks are this year for the AASA, but looking at last year's percentages of benchmark students against 7th and 8th, those are the areas that we're still below. When our team sat down in PLCs and really tried to consistently see what is it that we know our instruction at Tier 1 in the classroom is stronger than it has been in the past. We know that our teachers are pulling those small groups to do the reteach for those kids that are just needing a little extra time on task with it. But what we don't have in place, and this is just where we're at, it's just our current state, is a Tier 3 for math and really reading in the middle schools. Now, we added Laura Patrick supporting a little bit in ELA recently, but we don't have something. So what that means is if we have students that, let's say, are learning 8th grade math, and there's maybe algebraic concepts they're learning, and they're getting the reteach in that algebraic concept that they're learning, but they have holes from 6th and 7th grade in math, and there's not a systematic way that we're going back and reteaching those skills from below grade level. We're still seeing them struggle at that grade level. And middle school, you see it happening in that 7th and 8th grade. Last year it was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then it's just moving through that middle school piece. And so we have come up with some solutions that are unfortunately not super fast solutions. Next year, our math teacher, our PE teacher, see, I've already renamed him. Our math teacher, Ron Lampy, is a certified high school math teacher, and he's currently teaching PE and technology. So one of the things that I had kind of talked to Dr. Amandini about as a possible solution is having him spend 2 days a week on PE for school students and 2 days a week doing math intervention in the upper grades, and pulling those students to do that below grade level whole filling and teaching, because that is one thing that the classroom teacher just can't do, both the grade level instruction, the reteach, and then also go back and teach fill all the holes that students have. So we're hoping that by bringing him in 2 days a week to pull student groups and fill some of those below grade level holes, that we'll see that come up. So I'm hopeful. I know our teachers are doing a great job with their Tier 1, but I know there's still some holes there to be filled. So.
Then further on in the report, the aggression resolution education thing.
Yeah.
Just wow, that was, and you know what, I think it was kind of spot on for what we had with our other presentation with these threat management thing. Is that on that line?
Yes. So actually, we had them come out twice. So we were having some incidents in 2nd grade where we'd had a student make a threatening comment, actually 2 students that made some threatening comments, and our community was upset about some of the things that were being said. So I partnered and asked Buckeye PD and our Sergeant Granis, he's not a full-time resource officer, but he acts as a support to our campus. And he came up and we met and talked about, maybe some education we could do with those students. And he came in and did with a team, and they did a wonderful job. They were resource officers from Buckeye that work at Bales and Buckeye Elementary. And you can tell they're used to teaching small children about safety education. They did an incredible job engaging the kids. I mean, they were completely engaged and interested. They talked about some really difficult subjects, and they talked about, consequences for words and actions. Chuck, you were there. You did a great job, didn't they? And then we also had them come back. This was a different team that came back and spoke to our 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. And they did an incredible job. They came back in about a month later, and they actually talked to the kids about suicide prevention, emotional intelligence, bullying, social media safety. And those kids as well were incredibly respectful and very engaged in the conversation. Even some of our kids who have a little bit more need in those areas were really, really interested in what they were saying. And there was some good connections. So I found the Buckeye PD did an incredible job with not just knowing their safety piece, but how to interact with children. So we'd love to have them out here many more times if able.
That was great. I love seeing that. Yeah, and then like the love our school day, the campus cleanup thing. That was great.
Yeah.
And doing good stuff out there.
Thank you.
Very good.
Oh no, that picture. It's in the board report. Yeah. There's a picture that Mr. Chuck found that's in the board report that they also posted online, that Buckeye Police Department posted for us to show the partnership between the schools. Great point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Susan?
Yeah, I didn't really have any questions. Just wanted to say it's good to see all of the things that this school does for this community specifically. And then just showing the awards for the students, for academics, for just awards in general. It's good to see. You hear a lot about the negatives and you don't hear a lot about the positives. And so all of that, just really good information. And my only concern is related to students and grades. And I like the idea of intervention, especially for math, because you can't get far in life without math. And we don't want to get students behind. And I feel like I struggle with, why are they struggling now? And obviously we got behind with COVID and a lot of these students missed key pieces that they needed to get, better at the high school level. So,
yeah, and we know our number one, job after safety is student achievement, and it is frustrating. Our kids are coming to us with bigger holes than we'd like to see, and we're trying to get everything in place to make sure that we're filling those holes and getting them where they need to be. And it's not an overnight fix, unfortunately, but there's no excuses. We have to figure it out. So,
all good stuff. Thank
you.
Just a couple of comments. These kids who are falling behind in 6th and 7th grade that are being promoted, moved on, and now they're in 8th grade and they're still falling behind.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we not catching these things and intervening back in 6th grade or 7th grade? Why now are they in 8th grade and we're still trying to catch them up on 6th grade math? I don't get that.
Is the question, why aren't we retaining them? Or is the question I just want to.
Do we know that they're missing these in the earlier grades and there's no intervention?
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for every student, obviously, but I think that overall, we're definitely seeing, again, we had the COVID year or a year and a half, and then we had a lot of understaffing, and there was some struggles there. It doesn't change the fact that we have to get our kids where they need to be, but retention, and we can't retain a whole half a grade worth of students. So that they do promote with some holes, and so you're right, 100%. That intervention is to go in and try to fill those holes while we're also not creating new holes at the grade level they're at. So that's really where that intervention piece comes in. That we're trying to staff that and make sure that we have someone that can do that. And we've had a 0.3, 0.5 rating interventionist, which we upped this year, and we've had that in the lower grades that she's really been able to help out there. The middle school grades, we just don't have as much staffing outside of the classroom teacher, and that's typical of a smaller school. And so we're trying to find ways to support that, and I think we have some good ideas and have some good people. So it is a long. Lot of hole to fill, but we're working towards it.
The unfortunate thing with math is if you miss this concept, you're not getting this concept, and then you're not getting this concept. So, you have to kind of get this one to move on to this one.
Right.
And stuff. When I'm looking at
exactly right.
We have 17, 18 kids in 8th grade.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. I'm all about education.
Yeah.
And the only other comment I have, I love the pictures. I love all the things you do. It's always fun to see what you do. But captions on the photos would be great.
Okay. That's great feedback. Thank you.
Kind of know what we're looking at.
What's happening there. Okay. Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be a plus.
Okay. That's great feedback.
I know you're all working hard. I know it's not an easy job. I just like to see kids succeed.
Yeah.
See, I didn't miss that on those photos. I made my own caption.
Well, she
Write
talked
your own
about it
stories.
all above it, you know, so you could kind of guess at what, you know.
Yes.
Captions are great feedback. That's great feedback, W.
But if you looked at
Mhm.
Tampa's, it had captions, and it was nice.
Uh-oh.
I'm still working towards the Carissa standard. She's hard to measure up to. I'm just teasing you. I'm just teasing you. No, that's great feedback. Thank you.
I'm not as smart as you, Susan. I like words with pictures.
Well, I just have concern about, the 8th graders and, beating the dead horse here about the math. But, I know, they're going to go on and they're doing algebra next year. And it's just, I mean, I don't know. I'm just concerned about that part of it. It's because we're run kind of the end of the year and not a lot we can do.
Well, and
seem to be struggling.
that is definitely, we see that as well. One of the problems with the benchmark is it's showing us grade level standards. So even when students are making some growth below grade level, we're not going to necessarily always see that in benchmark. And I understand that it doesn't matter because that's the expectation of what they should know when they leave 8th grade. But the growth that if they started that year at, working at a 6th grade level and they're making growth towards 8th grade material, but the benchmark only measures 8th grade material. So it's not going to show us that they're making growth, even though the growth is below grade level. So it doesn't help them do algebra if they need to do algebra. But, I do see that work in PLCs of teachers talking about what their kids are doing and the growth that they're making. It's just, unfortunately, it hasn't been enough to show up in the math for middle school right now. So they're definitely working hard at it. I can promise you that.
Well, I'm sure they are, but it just, I'm just looking at, and you like you say, it's the benchmark for the 8th grade, but
Right.
that's what is the next year.
Right.
I mean,
It is. It builds. It builds.
To be able to move on.
That is true.
I mean, I know, it's just, it's tough. And you answered most of my other questions on your calendar, but I do have one question.
Okay.
The summer reading program.
Yes.
I noticed there you had with the Buckeye Library down in May. What can you give me a little bit about?
I can. That's actually being put on through the Buckeye Public Library, and so they wanted to. And I don't think they actually have all the details yet. They're going to come out and do a promotional assembly with our students the last week of school to get them excited about the reading programs, and then they're planning to kind of collaborate with us on some of the days that we have students in for summer school in the afternoons to come do some programs and bring the bookmobile out so kids can access books over the summer and things like that. So I don't think they have all the details hammered out yet, but we're certainly excited to partner with them on that.
Okay, thank you.
And I also wanted to say I loved your checklist question. It was very pilot of you because my husband has a checklist for everything also. I knew where that came from the second you said it.
Well, I didn't ask about the drills and
We got it all figured out.
But anyway, thank you.
The state's going to give us millions of dollars.
Perfect.
We're going to get a whole bucket full of Mr. Lamps.
Yeah,
We're going to fill all those gaps.
I like it. Let's do it that way.
Spend billions on vouchers. There's no money left for us.
No, we're going to get that back. But anyway, so I'm positive.
I love that plan. It sounds like a great plan.
But anyway, great report.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the information.
Thank you.
And we'll read those captions so I won't have to work so hard next time.
All right, I'll get them ready next time.
I did have one other little comment.
Oh, yeah.
Although I hate to end on a negative. No, I was amazed at the 2nd and 5th graders had more aggression and marks against them. 2nd grade seems kind of young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our 2nd grade class is a rowdy bunch. That's true. And then I think there's also, we're still working through the kinks of PBIS, which part of that is our staff training and making sure we're all on the same page about what an office referral should be and what it's not. And so what's classroom managed versus what's office managed. So, we're getting that all kind of hammered out as a team. And there's some people that are more comfortable with that process or where we're at with that than others. And, we're trying to get it very consistent across the board, but sometimes there's still a few more referrals that might come from one teacher than another, depending on, what they
Right.
are writing as a referral. So,
Okay, I'm going, second grade?
yeah. Well, in second grade, most of it's under minor aggressive, which that can be things like pushing in line or kind of, which isn't okay, and it obviously needs to be handled, but.
Throwing an eraser.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Corby.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have Hacienda, Mrs. Carissa Hershkowitz.
Well, good evening. I'm well.
Well, Ron, you didn't get to ask very many, so why don't you start this time?
I get to start? Okay. In my little chart here. Just your report on the Galileo data. I mean, that's like the way you have it displayed. It makes it a little bit easier, just because it's just comparison. And so it kind of shows how you're doing in comparison with the average in the district. That's like, I like the display. There's some concerning areas there.
Definitely.
Yeah, and, and same type of thing. I just, trying to, catch the kids up. And I know, it just snowballs, like Randy said, or Sandy won, but you don't know, you don't have the concept, you don't understand it, and then you're going to the next level and, trying to figure that one out. And, it's just hard to do. And I don't have an answer for you. That's what you're to do.
Right, but I think you can see that the challenges are cross district. They're not unique to Festival. They're not unique to Hacienda. They're not unique in Arizona.
Right.
Kids are struggling.
Yeah.
And
they're just everywhere. And it's just, it's just hard.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a question on, it's not in the report here, but we have it on the agenda and your travel.
Oh, yeah.
What is Chauncey Ranch?
Chauncey Ranch is, so in the past, we've gone to Prescott Pines.
Okay.
And at the beginning of this year, we were surprised to find out that Prescott Pines got sold. So we've been searching for a new camp, and Chauncey Ranch is very similar to what we had with Prescott Pines, but it's in Mare, and it has similar activities. It's 3 days, 2 nights. Everything's very similar. Chauncey Ranch is part of the learning pathways. I have it written somewhere. Pathways to learning or learning pathways. It's in the consent agenda piece. But if you visit the website, you can see the great things that they have going on there. But it's a collaboration between them and U of A and ASU. They do mobile labs. They'll even come to the schools and do presentations and things like that. So they have a good reputation. They were just really hard to get a hold of.
So that place, that's what it's focused on is STEM training, so it's not like just a camp area that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. They offer things like horseback riding and kayak and fishing and things like that. But they also have more like science experiments and working through owl pellets and that kind of fun stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandy, you ready?
I don't have a lot to say.
That's surprising.
Hey.
You got a long ride back.
I know. But what I'm gonna comment on is, I like the fact that you told me what these pictures were. And,
She's
I knew that was
turning the
coming.
knife
I knew it.
right there.
I'm not turning the knife. Normally I'm really hard on Carissa, but I'm being nice tonight.
Okay, good.
I just like all the fun things that the kids do. You know, and hopefully they're very involved in it.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
enjoy it and stuff. But looking at what, you know, all the little activities and I just like it.
Good. Good.
Um,
There's lots of good things happening.
I hope so. I
Mhm.
hope so. You know, there's no sense, you know, wringing the chicken's neck because, you know, never happy with the kids' scores.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a given.
Right.
Maybe you need to visit with Lulu and Stella.
There you go. They'll make you feel better. Lulu and Stella.
I don't have
She's
a
got
problem.
bears.
Oh.
I want these kids to succeed.
Yes. We are running K-5 after school tutoring to address a lot of those needs. So we've had two challenges, and that as our staff has gotten smaller, it's harder to convince somebody to, you know, give up days after school for that. And also getting parents to return the invitation so that their student attends.
Well, unfortunately,
it's hard.
That's really the downside of our schooling.
Mm-hmm.
So much of it is the parents aren't there.
I think it takes a little extra effort, and unfortunately, when you're short-staffed and running, you know, what was it, a sprint that we heard earlier, the sprint,
Right.
Those contacts become more challenging, right? But when they happen, they're beautiful. If you don't mind an anecdotal story, we had a situation a couple weeks before spring break where we had a group of kiddos that were being pretty sassy with their teachers and, you know, rather be playing than doing their math kind of stuff. And we had collaboration between two teachers and myself, and the appointments were made, and one by one, child and parent came in, and in a 90-minute period of time, we had 3 very impactful parent meetings. So sometimes it just takes that third phone call to get them on board, and then to have a real heart-to-heart conversation about what's needed and what's expected in their learning. And I can tell you one of those children today was telling me that he was a mathematician now, and because he finally got on board with learning his basic math facts, you know, like, but mom is on board, his sister's been practicing with him, and he's feeling some success. And teachers are beaming, and the student was happy as can be, and excited to tell me about it too.
And
so
that is what
they're
is
happening.
so great. You know, I really think if the parents support these kids and
Yeah.
work with these kids, and
You'll see a
help the
difference.
kids, you know, they do feel success.
Right.
And I
Success breeds
parents
success.
just
Right.
drive me insane because I just wish parents were more supportive. You know,
Hands-on would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be saying that till the day I retire. Sorry. I'm done.
Okay.
Susan?
Yeah, I liked seeing that there were 2 classes with excessive growth. That's really awesome to see. And the after school tutoring program, I think probably has something to do with that a little bit. Are we doing other after school programs, or is it just this tutoring
We
one?
still have Coyote Chorus is, you know, always our big winner. And I know there's one other, but it just went out of my head.
Does Mrs. Breckenridge still do the gifted one?
That's the other one.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. And then I saw that a lot of the discipline or over 50% was between 12:30 and 3.
Yes. Yes.
Do we still have that little afternoon like brain break? Remember when we,
Most of our specials are in the afternoon. So that is going on. So if I may explain, 2 different reports are going on here. The one from Synergy is the discipline summary. And what we found as we've implemented the PBIS cycle is that we have the classroom managed versus the office managed. Well, this report tells you about what's going on, what's coming to the office, which is wonderful in my world, right? Because we've had much higher numbers in the past. But you can't disregard what's happening in the classroom as well. So we've just started pulling some data from that end, and that's preliminary, what you're looking at. That's why there's only 35 entries. So we've just started looking at, so what is going on in classrooms, and there's a big difference between what you'll see from the office referral versus what you're seeing on a daily basis in the classroom. So, for example, on the office referrals, most of the office referrals are happening on Thursday, which I'm not sure, but it could be that we've tried all of these things since Monday and Thursday we're done. It could be that, where it's a lot more balanced when you look at it in this chart. So it's been fun looking at data in some different ways. And for the violation aspect of it, I think you noticed this, Susan, the throwing the eraser. So this is something we've just created to start collecting the data. So this isn't about so much that we caught one student throwing an eraser, but that there was a unsafe disruption in the classroom. So as we go through this, you won't see like multiple eraser throwings. It will be some sort of unsafe, somebody pulled a chair or something like that, but it will just go under an unsafe disruption.
nice.
So it's not,
It's always good to have data.
yes, it is. So we can make more informed decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I love seeing the Gold Rush Parade, seeing all the kids come by us, and all the other fun activities, and having Dr. Seuss back at the
Yes, it was
back
nice
at
having it back on
Hacienda.
campus. That was big.
Yeah. So that's it.
Thank you.
Hello, Carissa.
Well, hello.
Just one question about the enrollment down 9. Is that families moving? That was my assumption.
Yes, some of it is families moving, lots of different family situations. I can tell you from today and yesterday, we're up 5 on that 9, so we're only down 4 as of today. As I was delivering kids to classrooms. Yeah, so I don't know. There's something weird that happens around this time of year. Families making decisions.
I loved that you put in here this comparison of the discipline infractions compared this time of year to last year to this year. It's like, wow, what a difference.
Significant difference. Yeah.
Was there common incidents or something that
I would attribute the 2 things. One, our PBS implementation, definitely. And we had a more challenging group that has moved on.
Okay. They're up in BP.
So we'll
right?
hear about them next month.
Good luck, Anne Marie. I mean,
Here you go.
And just to be fair, it's a small group within a large group. It gets a bad reputation. It's a small group that
Right.
causes
I
all
mean,
that.
I loved seeing that comparison of the breakdown, seeing that, well, there might have been, 46 infractions, but almost half of those were almost the same students.
Right. And that hasn't changed. It's typically repeat offenders. So we know as a school that we have to figure out more directly how to support that student so that they can spend more time in the classroom.
Right. Nice. Okay. I like seeing that there.
Yeah. Me too.
Another thing with the Galileo, just something I'm thinking about. Maybe we need to talk with Dr. Remendini about this, but the comparison of the quarters you know, how each quarter may change with the testing for that quarter. You see if, you know, there's a difference.
Oh, comparing benchmark 3 with benchmark 2 and 1?
Exactly, the benchmarks, yes, yes. Just something I
Yeah.
thought, and we could probably discuss that. I liked, of course, the recognition, the honor roll students for the Gold Rush Parade. That was just phenomenal.
We have fun at Gold Rush.
And one photo that just blew me away was, of course, that the Reading Across America, the Dr. Seuss characters, and it was the Cat in the Hat with the other student. The look on their eyes.
Isn't that a great picture?
I think that needs to be entered in one of those photo contests.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you know who that is? And I didn't caption who it was. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that was.
That's
you know.
That's Dylan Healy.
Oh
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a trooper. Yeah.
Eyes were just. Well, I had to just stare at that photo.
I love that picture.
Yes, good report, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello.
Well, hello, Mr. President.
So, no, good stuff heard all the way around. So the only thing I wanted to add is, do you remember chalkboards?
I do. I love chalkboards. Why?
Because I just wanted to make sure.
You did.
Because when I heard the eraser throwing thing going on,
yes.
It's like
it brought you back.
Remember those days.
Oh yeah.
This is different than that. I was, you know, what kind of elementary school I was in, correct? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
we know your story, Joe.
You don't know this part though, because I went home with chalk on my forehead more times than I can imagine. It wasn't kids throwing them. It was the educators. Because there wasn't rules or laws back then. You know, so I was the one that went home with chalk in my hair, and my mom said, "What'd you do?" Recess. You don't have any grass stains, because I was inside. I was playing with the nuns.
Cleaning the boards.
Anyway, so yeah, it was kind of funny when I heard that. It's like, I remember those days, but it wasn't kids throwing them. Anyway, no, great report.
Thank you.
I thought you was going to tell the story about the chalkboard putting a circle on the board and you had to put
hold your head there.
I won't admit that one. I won't admit it. Might have happened more than once, but I won't admit it.
If you don't mind, I'd like to add that Stella and Lulu were at school yesterday.
Were they?
Oh, they were, and it was wonderful to see how the students interacted. And we even had a student that was having a little trouble, and they were able to go up to the class, and everybody got real calm and enjoyed them. And then today they were like, "But where are they?" Because they weren't, you know, they're not, can't do it every day because, you know, then it wouldn't have the same effect. So they are excited that they will be back on Thursday. So
are they tag teaming? Like, for that incident, did they just take one of the dogs, or did they keep them in pairs the whole time?
They would normally go individually, but for this situation, they brought the dogs to the class, so it didn't feel like it was just for an individual. Okay. Yeah, made it feel special for everybody.
I think that's going to be a great program.
I'm really excited about it. Yeah, I'll be coming next. I think we need desert tortoises and maybe some chickens, but we'll talk later.
Or not.
Chickens.
The covered horse.
All right, so now we've come to item number 3, is call to the public. And yes, we do have a public. And we have Mr. Maloli, and he just wants to talk about himself, it says, because it's blank. Oh, sure do. Yeah. That was me. That's why I got my muscle before football practice.
Cleaning them. No.
Yeah.
No.
No. I was the electric guy.
I wasn't sure who wanted the public.
It's all
It's
set.
on.
I don't want to, I'm not gonna throw Corby under the bus, but I did talk to her about this morning, and she told me that it's in the queue, but I wanted to get it on the record. Was it daylight when you guys came in here?
Not quite.
No? This is Weed City. It is Weed City all through the campus. Are we gonna get weed removal? Do I get an answer or?
You don't?
I don't get an answer?
not
It's not on the agenda, so
We
we
can't
can't.
talk
Oh, yeah.
about that.
Oh, I'm
Just call it
sorry.
a
I didn't know that.
You can just air it and we'll
Well,
put it in
I'll
our
air my
papers.
complaint that we need weed removal. Weed City. If we were an HOA, we'd have been fined a lot of money. That's all I got to say, and you guys are fantastic. You don't hear about Virginia and all these other boards having all these problems. You guys do a good job. Thank
They
you.
have their problems and we have weeds. I'll take the weeds. Thank you, Chuck. Huh? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, Marie. Okay.
We have another public. We have Miss Marie Payne. And we're going to talk about SOAR assemblies, student progress emotional. Hello, Marie. Good to see you.
So I'm speaking to you guys today as a grandma. And I know you had commented about some fun things that were happening. And I just wanted to express that I have 2 grandsons that attend here. And I think the SOAR assembly, one of my little kiddos, he's just 7. I'm going to get emotional. And he's got sensory disorder. And he's, had been a little bit slow in development. But what the SOAR assemblies and what that's brought to him being here at the school has been amazing this year. The whole idea that he gets rewarded for just the smallest things in class, gets recognized, has brought him through the level of, we didn't think he'd be reading this year, and he's reading. We didn't think he'd be able to accomplish some of his little tics and some other things happening, and he's already there. And he let us know, I'm so excited, and I got this. And he's been recognized twice at the SOAR assemblies. So I just wanted to bring up, if you guys ever want to come to one of the SOAR assemblies, you're going to see how excited the kids are. And we have parents come, and they're very excited as well. So I know I work here, but I'm really speaking as a grandma from my heart. So I think it's made an impact on my grandson. Huge, huge. Just the simple recognition and that turnaround for him being excited about learning everything and being here without having fear. It used to be last year he couldn't be here if there was going to be a substitute. He couldn't do it. He's so attached to his teacher. This year he's excited because he can earn SOAR tickets even through the substitute. So he knows when he tries his best, and they've given him leadership, jobs in the classroom, and he's come a long way. He's just really done a great job this year, and we're excited. And I think SOAR brought that to our school and brought that to a lot of the little kids who might have some issues, because it's recognizing so many different things for them. And the second thing I have, my other grandson, you mentioned COVID and test scores and things that are coming across. And my second grandson is in 6th grade. And he's the one who was affected by COVID. He missed so much. And I just want to express as a grandma that even though we don't think as some things as educational, everything that they're doing here comes right back to education for him, because the whole idea of coming back to school was amazing. But then they came back and they had to wear masks. They came back and they couldn't work in groups. They came back and they couldn't sit at their table with their friends at lunchtime. So all of that, until this has kind of all went away, just in these steps throughout the last couple of years, now he's finally at that 6th grade level, getting comfortable again, being in a normal circumstance. And that, all that stuff that had to do with COVID, even though it wasn't educational, affected how he felt about his education. and it impacted him and how he was willing to learn, how he felt about things. And now that he's kind of getting back into that normalcy, we can, try and start that. So I think that maybe some of the other kids might feel like that. I'm not sure. I know his friends talk about that. I mean, they were nervous about coming back to school because of COVID. They were nervous because the world has changed so much. The inflation, and they hear their parents talking about things, and things are, so much stressed out at home, and we had to have parents stay at home and lose jobs, and all that stuff they brought right back here into the school. But now this is finally like their safe zone. We're back, and he's doing science projects in Mr. Black's classroom, where they're sitting as a group and they're eating lunch with their kids as a group, and they're back in doing PE, and they're back in doing sports, and they're back in doing all those things that for a couple years wasn't normal at all. So that all those little things, what we think are kind of little things, impacted ultimately how they felt about education, how he felt about testing, how he felt about coming to school in general, about being tired from wearing the masks, or, silly thing, but having no drinking fountains. That was like a big thing. That was a huge change for kids, that they all have to bring a water bottle, and they have to, go do that stuff. So I think all those little changes really set the kids back a lot, when it came to those scores and those testings and those outcomes in the classroom. So I think all that has to be looked at too. And I hear this from him. And so that's a personal thing for me, because, my grandson comes back and just tells me all those things. So I know that it's definitely not, just about the scores, but education in general is how they're feeling in school, and how he feels that he's trusted in school, and he can trust people in school, and the safety is back for him, and the comfort zone, and now they're comfortable again learning. So I just think that was important to kind of share with you guys.
Well, thank you, Maria. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move into our consent agenda. And does anybody need anything pulled before we act on the consent agenda?
Yes, I'd like item C, our personal action report.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Okay. Can we get a motion to approve all but C?
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel action report. Oh, sorry, wrong one. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item C for March 21st, 2023.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And Dr. Ramandini, I guess, is going to take the...
Yes, Mr. Malio, members of the board, I apologize. There is an error on one of the PARs that was submitted in consent agenda item C. A PAR for Lisa Smith had calculated the wrong total amount, and so that needed to be pulled. It has been corrected, so all the rest of the PARs should be fine with that correction.
So I'll make a motion now to approve the personnel action reports as corrected.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries as well. Thank you so much. And now we can move along to our loan action item. And this is a approval of our financial reports presented by Mrs. Erin Johnson.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. Before you have the board financial report. Not a lot has changed since last month. Percentages are up as to be expected. We're trending very well. I expected, as I said before, a nice carry forward that will support the increase that we provided for next year. So our budget balances are positive. We are in compliance, and there are no surprises to the best of my knowledge.
Good news.
I know there was one question on the vouchers. One of the funds had the fund number there, which was 338, and then the description said, I think, undesignated. It's for promo. And so that correction's been made in our system. There's lots of boxes that you have to fill out in Visions in order to assign names, and there was one that was missing that pulled that report. So I dug into the report with Casey and found where that was, and then it should be corrected moving forward.
Good. Good catch, Sandy, by the way.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we haven't spent much capital money. And I would just,
No, we haven't.
is there just nothing that needs capital money?
No, there is. It's just taking some time to get some things through. So, for example, we approved some phones systems today, and so that purchase order just got placed today. And so we do have some things in the works, but some of it just the process takes a little while to get things moving and get the quotes and things. But we do have some plans on some different systems and products that we're going to be moving forward with.
Okay.
So.
There's no, no repairs or anything like that?
Oh, there's repairs for sure. Thankfully, a lot of our repairs have been able to be funded through the SFB though.
Mhm.
And so then that allows us to save some of that capital money.
Right.
But we do have some plans in place. For example, maintenance is putting a plan in place. We want to start, repair or replacing air conditioning units, for example.
Right.
And so rather than having them all go out at the same time, we want to put them on a plan and, get them in.
Sure.
At a time. And the same thing, we've bought a couple white fleet vehicles this year. And of course, technology is always on the radar. So, but we've been very fortunate to receive a lot of grants that have offset that. So it's allowed us to save some of that money.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
I have a question, and I'm not sure that it even belongs here. I'm just curious, did we purchase new scoreboards for softball and baseball?
We had a grant that awarded those, and the ship date kept getting delayed. I do believe the estimated date as of this morning was next week, correct? The 28th for arrival.
And I will clarify, that was a donation.
Donation, sorry, yes.
From a foundation that we will celebrate and announce when they're delivered.
I'm just looking for a scoreboard.
They're coming.
A working scoreboard.
These are
They're going to be beautiful.
The fanciest scoreboards any high school campus has ever had.
I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Did you say, was that what you asked originally? School board? Scoreboard?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you said uniform.
I wanted to clarify that we had ordered scoreboards.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
At school books.
No, scoreboards.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm not speaking.
Item 6, items for future agendas. Announcements, calendar. You can see
I did have a question.
I'm sorry. Did we approve the financial report?
I thought we did, didn't we? Didn't we do that, Casey?
No.
Oh.
I was waiting to make a motion.
Well,
So-
Randy, why don't you just go right ahead?
Okay, I'll do that. I'll make a motion to approve the financial report as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion does carry. Okay, items for future agendas. Ron?
Well, no, the calendar.
Okay. All right, so let's go on to announcements and calendar.
No, I just had a question. Your thing with Buckeye Libraries in May. In May, that was the one you had on your calendar. Okay, there's one on the calendar, this other calendar for the 27th.
Yes, that's actually a community, the city of Buckeye, so the city of Buckeye Public Library is seeking input from the whole community. They have one meeting at our school, one at Vales, one at Buckeye, one at all over, anywhere all over the city of Buckeye. So they're just trying to seek input from the community on things they'd like to see. So it's really kind of unrelated to the school. We're just hosting it on our campus.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I was kind of confused on that one.
You good now?
Huh?
You good?
I'm good.
All right, way to go.
You know I'm good.
You betcha. Okay, let's have an adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I want to know how come
We're adjourned
over
at
here
7:27.
and the meeting lasts an hour and a half, and I go to Buckeye and it's 45 minutes. I mean, go to Wickenburg and it's 45 minutes. You know, I drive